It's the truth. Period. Fuck all the bullshit. Me and Dave was sitting there talking about what y'all believe in and how y'all work as low frequency people. What I'm gonna share with y'all today is some of the truth. That's what I always share with y'all. About this white guy, gonna tell you the truth now. Since I ain't no scholar or no nigga that finished college or high school.
That every mass poisoning in America, it seems, just happens to take place in black communities. I mean, think about this. Flint, Michigan, right? Detroit, basically. Lead in the water supply. Not a small amount, a massive amount, a potentially fatal amount of lead if consumed over time. Highly toxic, highly damaging to the development of the human brain. It was deliberately put into the water supply. There was a massive
Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How
carried out by white people, by the way.
Your beautiful new aircraft is waiting at our nearest airfield.
The black
we hope you're very happy, sir.
Of Flint, Michigan, which is predominantly black, and this is just one of many such cases.
Low income.
In the past, there was also this poisoning in the Washington.
Yeah, our people. Just this people. I told you, the dude.
Anybody falls under that.
Not the
Low income Hispanic.
Right.
Low income, I mean.
Low income, period.
It was mostly blacks and Flint, but there was some Latinos there. There was some. You know, there was some poor white folks there. I mean, gonna be some. We're gonna be here. That's what happened when y'all in the same lot. You know, but they experiment in cities, man. That's where you can experiment at best. It's an area full of people.
You got all the guinea pigs you want.
Every major city.
All the guinea pigs you want, Dave. Any nigga that don't have nothing,
they can drop something into the atmosphere.
But any nigga that don't got nothing could be a guinea pig. All you gotta do is put it on something.
Just drop something in the atmosphere. Just
right, see we do.
Just be right in
the neighborhood. You see what we do. That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
These scientists is fucked up.
Yeah, they are, bro.
Corporations got these scientists. They know what's fucked up in the water. They know what's fucked up in the food. They know what's fucked up in everything.
And that's not all.
And this, the food is fucked up.
It's fucked up. What they call food.
Food is fucked up.
Yeah. What they call food. What they call food.
Processed shit. All that fast food shit fucked up.
All the fucked up, Dick. There ain't no food.
Because they know that those people will have more aggressive cancers because of their skin color, which blocks ultraviolet light from the sun, which generates vitamin D. So the black communities tend to be vitamin D deficient. And as a result, they are more lucrative to the cancer industry. And so these predominantly white-owned cancer organizations, for-profit businesses, they set up shop in low-income black communities, and they offer free screening so they can falsely diagnose black people with cancer so they can make a fortune treating them with chemotherapy that they don't even need. And in Detroit, working inside the Karmanos Cancer Center, or the Karmanos-Crichton Cancer Center is what it was called, was Dr. Fareed Fatah. And he would recruit black people, and he would tell them they had to have chemotherapy, and then he would order them to be compliant. That they had to do the chemo with him, sometimes for years, while he kept billing Medicare and Medicaid insurance companies. He was raking in a fortune with a false diagnosis, committing absolute criminal fraud, preying upon the suffering and pain of black folks, while he was pocketing millions of dollars and making the whole cancer industry rich because they were selling, the chemotherapy chemicals to him that he was marking up and selling to the black patients and billing the government. These people didn't even have cancer. And Dr. Fatah eventually was arrested. There was a whistleblower inside the hospital who blew the whistle. And he was arrested, prosecuted, and sentenced to 45 years in prison. But if not for this whistleblower, he would have been continuing that practice to this day. And so that's just another example. But let me wrap it up for you. Again, water poisoning with lead, black communities. Vaccines and autism, predominantly black kids at risk. Not only black kids, but there's a higher risk with black kids. Washington, D.C., water poisoning, black community. Cancer industry, predatory targeting of black women and black men because that's who they know are the most profitable. So let me be blunt here. You probably know my name's Mike Adams. I'm the health ranger. I run the science lab here. I'm a scientist. I'm a
it's all about Mike Adams.
Researcher. I'm an investigative journalist.
He is a scholar from all them different colleges.
Journalism. I'm a whistleblower.
So he would know
author,
the knowledge.
Book, Food Forensics. What else? I run naturalnews.com. I have seen that there is a genocidal overlay to the medical system as it is operated today. It's not just the medical system, but really the entire public health system is probably a better term. There is a racist, genocidal targeting of black people, and it's more insidious than I think you can imagine. It's not just that they want to make money off the suffering and pain of black people in the cancer industry, for example.
They want to kill you.
It's also, if you look at this water poisoning, where they knew about it and they covered it up. Look, I'm an expert in heavy metals. This is what I do in this lab. I test for heavy metals, okay? Lead causes mental retardation. It is one of the most well-known, well-documented side effects of lead exposure or lead consumption. It's no coincidence that this poisoning in the Flint, Michigan water was literally dumbing down kids in the black community, and that these white people knew it was happening and allowed it to happen and kept it happening and covered it up and refused to warn the public, and they were trying to get away with it for another decade. You think this is a coincidence? I'm here to tell you it isn't. And the reason I'm going public with this, as obviously a white guy, is because, you know,
y'all don't listen to the black people. Y'all don't listen to somebody like me, because I don't have no documents behind me. I don't have no paperwork behind me, so I don't matter to you. But I say to you, I went somewhere.
Oh, you're just saying that because you're black.
I went into the light to know what's right.
I'm saying it, and I'm white.
To really know, not believe in some bullshit.
This is real. This is happening. The black communities are being specifically targeted by the medical system. The black communities disproportionately suffer under the mass poisoning of the water supply. And also, by the way, of the food supply. That's a whole other discussion. But if you look at the food that is available in black communities, typically, it is food that is almost engineered to cause cancer, to cause diabetes, to cause heart disease. It is food that is essentially poison. And you don't find the same types of food available in the inner city, predominantly black communities, especially if they're low-income communities. And so the options are completely different. And I know I'm probably gonna get some hate on this video from some white folks saying, you know, I'm stirring up racism. I'm not stirring up anything but the truth here.
There you go, buddy.
I'm telling you what I see as
what I told you. You are on a channel with Mr. Glasses. The truth is the truth, period. Fuck the bullshit. Fuck the color barrier, because that's what the separation is. The colors, black and white. There's no such thing as black and white people. We're all flesh, bone, and blood fucking people, man. Fuck all the bullshit.
And so I wanted to go on the record as a white guy, as a science researcher, as an author, as an investigative journalist, as a whistleblower. I wanted to go on the record and tell you, any of you who are willing to listen, willing to share this video with people you know who might live in some of these communities, I'm willing to go on the record and tell you this is real. There is a genocidal, racist, perhaps eugenics agenda.
Come on, and
inside
and on
in the
the FDA, you did the CIA, the FBI, every last alphabet that you can name of is part of it. Because the whole key to the whole thing is, it's just a certain amount of rich motherfuckers
when it comes to profiteering off
that want to control the world.
It's all white people setting up these things in black communities to profit from disease and suffering, or to keep black folks down, keep them suppressed, like the lead in the water. I mean, think about it. It sounds like a James Bond villain, you know, to poison the water supply and keep the people dumbed down so that you can control them, you know. But it's actually happening. They actually did it. The EPA covered it up. The Michigan state officials covered it up, and that's why they've been arrested and charged with crimes. They actually did it. And it's astonishing that even anybody's actually possibly going to jail over this, because this kind of thing happens so often that usually nobody's ever held accountable. I mean, this happens every day. The cancer industry is preying upon black people every single day, and very few of those individuals have been arrested. I hope more will be arrested soon for their crimes, but so far, not that many have been arrested like Dr. Fattah. He's one of the few. But it is a cycle that they create. They feed you the food that causes cancer, and then they profit from the cancer treatment that gives you more cancer, and then you come back for more repeat business, and they get even more money billing more insurance for your second follow-up cancer treatment, while they're feeding your kids toxic lead that dumbs them down and gives them cancer and bone disorders and heart disorders that bring in more repeat business for the same hospitals that are treating you for cancer. Now they're treating your kids for bone disorders. It is a money-making racket. It is a form of modern-day enslavement. It is medical slavery. It is economic servitude to the masters of Big Pharma. That's all it is. You know, we all know the history of America, and you know, there was a time when the enslavement focused on, you know, physically enslaving black people. Not that much has changed. It's just that the form of enslavement is now a little more high-tech, a little more advanced, a little more, you know, it sounds like it's medicine. It sounds like it's treatment. It isn't. It's just enslavement under a new system with new corporate masters. That's all it is. And frankly, that enslavement system also enslaves white people and Latino people and the Asian people and everybody. It's not you know, the pharmaceutical cartels are not just focused on black people. They just know that that's where the biggest profits are to be found. And this is very real. This is happening. And I'm telling you, as an investigator, as a white guy, as a scientist that runs this laboratory, as an author, I'm telling you, this is real. I have evidence right now. I've filed a complaint with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've offered to testify under oath to provide the findings that I have, that my staff and myself have found, that point to a deliberate, systemic cover-up of the targeting of black people for cancer treatment that is medically unjustified. I would like to see more of these people go to jail, for one thing. I would like to see some real legal justice served against those who are committing these crimes against children especially, but also crimes against adults. You know, the cancer industry preys upon adult men and women as well. I would like to see the truth finally come out about vaccines and about cancer and cancer prevention. And, you know, there's a really great docuseries out there called The Truth About Cancer that you need to watch. You need to see that. If you have dark skin, trust me, you need vitamin D. Your vitamin D levels are probably so low that your body is growing cancer tumors more rapidly than the body of a white person, let's say. Vitamin D can help you in tremendous ways to not need a cancer doctor. So you got to check that out. It needs to be spread across the black communities that are being targeted by the cancer industry, so that you have a form of defense against being exploited and medically enslaved by that cancer industry. I guess my number one goal is to say that we, the people, regardless of our skin color or our economic status, we, the people, have got to defend ourselves. We've got to put up some self-defense against these systems that are murdering us, is the bottom line. And yeah, they're murdering black folks more aggressively than they're murdering anybody else, but they're murdering people across all races as well, as long as it makes them money, you know, on their GMOs, on their vaccines, on their fluoride, on their cancer treatments, you name it. It is a systemic mass poisoning and profiteering off of those that they can manage to successfully target and get away with it. And it's time that this needs to stop. And it is not going to stop unless we get the word out, unless you share this video and help empower others with the truth, so that at some point we can stand up and put a stop to this. Frankly, black folks should be marching and picketing in front of the cancer centers, because that's who's killing you, is the cancer centers, the cancer surgeons, and the chemotherapy doctors. They are the ones that are killing you, and the vaccine doctors, they're killing your kids. And the state health officials, the water quality managers, they're killing your kids.
I'm gonna give me a picket sign.
The system,
I'm gonna go stand out in front of the cancer
system is trying to tell you that you gotta rise up, against white people. It's not technically true. We all gotta rise up together against the corporations. That's what we gotta do. Brothers and sisters, white, black, everything. We, the people, have got to rise up against the corporate monopolies and the corporate poisoners, and the toxic cancer industry that wants you to stay sick, because that's how they keep making repeat money off of your suffering. It is the people, the everyday people, no matter where we live, no matter what our skin color, we need to rise up against the corporate cartels and the corporate monopolies. We got to take our country back so that we can get something restored that might resemble sanity, that might resemble real medicine, professional medicine, that might resemble real public safety or real justice for that.
A real fucking fool.
It's not going to happen if we end up fighting each other. Whites versus blacks, that's the narrative that the mainstream media pushes, because that's what they want to distract you with. The truth is, we the people got to fight against our corporate masters who are trying to enslave us all, no matter what our skin color. So that's my take on it. I hope you take this seriously. And I hope you understand I'm taking a risk to say this. I'm going to get some hate for saying this. But it's the truth.
It is.
And that's what inspires me to sit here and tell you this truth.
That's what I'm talking about, bro.
You can check out my website at naturalnews.com. Listen to my podcast at healthrangerreport.com. And you can also download the first section of my new book called Food Forensics. You can get that book at foodforensics.com. Download the first section for free. Again, my name's Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mike Adams. Man, we'll listen to you. My boy Dave been saying this all the time. You need to get y'all belly right. To get y'all minds tight. Which y'all don't want to do right. Now, we about to hear about this new bullshit ass shooting that had.
For exactly why. What was behind 29-year-old Omar Mateen going on a killing rampage inside an Orlando nightclub? 49 people dead, more than 50 others wounded, in the deadliest mass shooting in our nation's history. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Sandra Smith, host of Kennedy on Fox Business Kennedy, Jedediah Bila, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, Iraq and Afghanistan veteran Congressman Adam Kinzinger. And he's here, outnumbered. Congressman, your focus of late has been foreign policy, so I can't wait to get you in on this conversation. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here on a bad day.
Let's get right to it. As we await remarks from the FBI chief after he briefed President Obama in the Oval Office about the situation in Orlando, this, we're learning now, more about the unimaginable hours of terror inside the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Survivors who managed to get away, describing the horror, the chaos, as the gunman methodically shot people, one right after the other. Families rushing to the scene, hoping against all odds that their loved ones would be the ones to make it out alive.
All I remember was hearing the bang, 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 that was part of the song. All of you turn around, the person next to you is like screaming, there's blood splattering. I didn't know if it was mine or somebody else's, but when I got out, I realized it wasn't mine.
He was shot from, we don't know. He's in the women's bathroom with the hostage. And he's hostage from the shooter. How did you find out? He was texting and calling. What did he tell you exactly? That the shooter had them in the women's bathroom hostage and he was going to die.
That woman's son would not be among the survivors. Bill Hemmer, co-anchor of America's Newsroom, joins us live from Orlando. Bill.
Harris,
the FBI director's press conference will be illuminating. It has been 5 hours since anyone of authority has really spoken on this and on the investigation side. We had a briefing at 7 a.m. this morning. It is my sense, after hearing from the FBI this morning when they talked about a great amount of electronic evidence, you have to think right now that this investigation is an overdrive, especially, Harris, when you consider that he had been on a terror watch list and was taken off of it. He was questioned by the FBI in 2013. He was questioned by the FBI the following year for the alleged connection he had with the
Man, can't you see the picture that's painted here? This is a cell that was activated by our government, man. This ain't nothing but Obama motherfucking people, man. This ain't nothing but the powers that be wanted to be some bullshit.
Is there a sense today that they are now building toward more clarity about this man? I mean, we are learning things as far back as high school. The Washington Post now reporting that classmates remember him jumping up and down on the day of 9/11, that this man had a history.
And all the rest of this shit is to get y'all mind off of Hillary, bitch ass. Keep y'all minds on that stinky snake. Keep your minds on that stinky snake. Her and her stank ass husband. Then you gotta watch Obama too. Damn. And you gotta watch Trump. God damn. You just gotta watch all these sons of bitches. And then do what you do.
And it breaks his heart to think as governor of the state that it could have been his daughters, it could have been anyone. And I think that's what the country is feeling on this, Harris. When there was Boston with the bombing there, Fort Hood with the Nadal Hassan, Chattanooga or San Bernardino, and now it's come to Orlando. And so many of us as Americans think it won't happen in our town, but this is now what Orlando is dealing with. And it rips your heart out. There are at least 20 still in the hospital, wounded from the shooting on Saturday night. 5 now are listed in grave danger, Harris, and they need all of our support.
And we know, according to that news conference that you covered there this morning, Bill, that their mission now is to reach out to all next of kin, because that still hasn't been accomplished. And as you stand there, Bill, you can clearly see emergency response vehicles still behind you. What is the investigation like right now at that nightclub as they try to analyze and track down every shot that was fired in that building?
Sandra, it's rare. It's rare that you see so much law enforcement out in such a show of force, too. All of Orange Avenue has been shut down. It's sheriff's departments. All these are the white vans behind me. It is all sheriff investigative units, one after the other, that's gathering evidence and trying to piece this together. Drug enforcement agents are here. The FBI is here.
Oh, what they doing? They want that thing to do.
It's still so active when you consider we are only 36 hours into this. And you think about Boston when I was up in there, or Paris back in November when I was covering that from the French capital. It is in these early hours that there is so much we just do not know. In the early hours of Boston bombing, we had no idea these guys went to Chechnya. Imagine that now as you look back on it. It was 5 days before we could even identify them. I don't know what we're about to uncover, but it will tell us an awful lot about what happened here.
All right, Bill, it's Kennedy. I have a question. We know that ISIS had been targeting gays since the set of Ramadan, now that has begun. So what are other nightclubs in the area and across the country during Pride Week? What are they doing to protect themselves? Are their clubs changing? And what do you hear about places altering their schedules and beefing up protection?
It's a great question, and I simply don't have an answer because I have not heard from private businesses on that. But I will tell you, Kennedy, if you look at the incremental changes in America, every time we have a terrorist attack, we change as a country. Think about the airports right now. We're still trying to figure that out. Yeah. You'll see a greater frequency of wands and surveillance. That's inevitable after you see something like this. It's going to happen. It's our new reality as a nation.
Jedediah here, Bill. You're on the ground there, and I want to get a sense of what you feel coming from the community. This is a community. You saw people rushing to donate blood. You saw, from my perspective, a coming together that was so impressive and made the nations feel so inspired and empowered. What is the sense now that you have being on the ground there among people that have gone through so much?
I believe they react as Americans. I believe they react and they respond just like the U.S. military members on boats in Fort Hood. I believe they react and they respond just like the people of Boston. What a great town to be able to carry on its traditions and sense of family and community. And brought together, I would argue, even more so because of what they experienced together. I would expect, even though it is very early here in Orlando, to get a very similar reaction.
And Bill, we're joined today with our hashtag One Lucky Guy, Congressman Kinzinger here, and I know you have a question as well.
Yeah, Bill, you know, you're talking a little about the sense, about the community, what it feels like. Is there a sense of, is it more coming together? Is there a sense of anger out there, people that say, hey, how did this happen, and you know, we need to take this fight to them, or is it still just coping with the human tragedy that we saw, I guess, to put it as lightly as we can?
You nailed the question. How do we react to it? What do we do? You know, you think about all the others and the terrorist attacks that have been carried out, and after you get the intel, Congressman, as you well know, that they had popped up. Their lives had been highlighted. They were on a watch list, or they had an interview with the FBI or local police. We knew about them, and still we were not able to stop them. Now, why is that? Is that because our system is so failing? Is that because the terrorists change their ways and oftentimes go dark in social media, and so therefore you no longer have the opportunity to trace them and see where they're coming from? Look, in Paris and in Brussels, what we saw in the last 6 months, they were using smartphones one time, toss it in the garbage can and move on to the next site. How difficult is that for law enforcement? It is damn near impossible, if you ask me. And now we have hundreds, if not thousands, to track. I don't know what the answer is, but
the answer is they doing it themselves, because regular human beings won't hurt regular human beings unless you hurt a human being for a reason. And most of the reason is that they want to start some kind of fucking war so they can make some money off of killing human beings. But the soldiers got to realize they can't have no fucking war without y'all. And if you realize that, look at what happened to the veterans after they lose a leg or lose life. If they do live, what type of life do they have when they come back to this bitch? None. Because they don't take care of them at all. So that should live there and let y'all soldiers know 1 to 2 things. They don't care about y'all at all.
Afghanistan, he says, there are pictures today of him in some high-powered corridors, including our own U.S. State Department, his father, as he runs for office. And you're talking about that very country, that boiling hot Afghanistan. Bill Hemmer, we'll see you again at 3 p.m. Eastern as you report live.
Okay, Harris, we have a briefing in a couple minutes. See you then. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, let's bring it back now. You know, I want to go a couple of places with this. Can we hear from his dad? Because there are some things that have come out in the last hour that I think we probably want to talk about. So Omar Mateen's father had to say this about what's happened. Let's watch.
If I didn't know a 1% that he's committing such a crime, my son, I would have arrested myself, I would have called the FBI, I would have called the local law enforcement. I don't know why he did what he did. I wasn't aware of it. You know, I always paid attention.
They programmed that boy when they took him in with the FBI, man. They programmed him.
We're coming in here, and I'm very sorry, I'm very upset that he did what he did inside the United States.
You know, President Obama says, draw upon your angels. I'm feeling a different emotion right now. Because the Washington Post is saying that as many as 15 years ago, they knew this kid had a problem. And I say kid, then he was in high school. On 9/11, Omar Mateen's classmates were mourning as they watched video, and he was jumping up and down. I mean, to say that radicalization had not happened before, I don't know that we can say. We at least need to question it. How long was this person a red flag among us?
Yeah, I think that's important. You know, there's what I call a short target and a long target in winning this war. The long target obviously is destroying ISIS where they exist, and we can go into that. But on the short target is We've got to lift the veil of political correctness in this country. Now, it doesn't mean you can just hurl insults and do things like that, but you have a lot of cases where people are scared to go to the FBI, or they're scared to report suspicious behavior because they're afraid they're going to be labeled as, you know, a bigot, a racist, or whatever. We've got to say, look, if something is suspicious, like, you know, the shooters in California, we saw that there were neighbors that saw that, you know, there was some crazy stuff that they were up to. You have to be able to take that to law enforcement without retribution. In many cases, you're going to be wrong. Maybe this person's up to nothing, but in a few cases...
I don't need no commercial.
You're going to be right. And we need to develop the intelligence assets within the community that can...
You're saying the Muslim community.
Within the Muslim community. And that's why I get, you know, there's always talked about blanket statements. I get nervous about that because in order to develop human intelligence, you have to develop people within the community that maybe we're radicalized that saw the light, or we'll do it for money. But you develop those assets where they can let you know about bomb plots and plots to assassinate. We've got to begin thinking at that level here and then destroy the caliphate where it exists in Syria, because these guys aren't going to have anything to swear allegiance to when it's destroyed by a bunch of Marines and everybody else.
Yeah, I just wonder about our ability to do that. I mean, the Belgians haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
They've got Molenbeek.
We can, but we're going to have to come together to do it. That's the problem. And you have too many people with a political agenda.
We are awaiting two briefings, one from the FBI Director James Comey, the other from the White House, that happens routinely every day at about 12:45 or so. But we'll watch for both of those. President Obama once again would not use the words radical Islamic terrorism in his remarks after the Orlando massacre. Kennedy, you're shaking your head. Ambassador John Bolton joins us next to tell us why he sees the president's response is a huge problem in the war on terror and the fight against the savages. Stay close.
Was inspired by various extremist information that was disseminated over the internet. At this stage, we see no clear evidence that he was directed externally.
What? You hear that, boy, Dick?
At the last minute, he announced allegiance to ISIL. But there is no evidence so far that he was in fact directed.
Wow, that boy lived in Kent, straight out.
Let's bring in Ambassador John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. Ambassador, good to see you again today. You wrote this op-ed criticizing the president for, once again, not calling the enemy by its name, radical Islamist terrorism. You are also criticizing the use of the term lone wolf attack. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think the president is determined to avoid the fundamental reality, which is that we are facing a political ideology that has utter contempt for our system, our constitutional system. This is not another instance of a self-radicalizing terrorist, somebody who had no problem with the local wolf. All of these isolated, unrelated incidents that occur across the United States and Europe. These are people motivated by the same political ideology. They may be motivated and operationalized in different ways. They may not be specifically directed by people in ISIS global headquarters. ISIS isn't a corporation with a group of men sitting around in suits and ties.
Yeah, that's what ISIS is, a whole group of men sitting around with suit and ties on. And some other motherfuckers out there that they paying.
They came in to rescue. So this is something we've seen in other countries. And I remember you saying that after the first Paris attack, Charlie Hebdo, that newspaper, that satirical newspaper, you said our president missed such an important moment. Not just a photo op, but an important moment to stand with France, because there will be a day when they will have to stand with us. We heard from Hollande this morning, the president of France. Where are all of those other Muslim leaders around that region? Maybe they're having private conversations with the president, but where are they?
Well, I think they're in the shadows, which is fundamentally where the president is. This isn't going to change because other people around the world take a leadership role. It is our responsibility. We are the ones ultimately most in peril. Others are in peril too, and they need to be part of our effort to destroy ISIS. The president himself is saying that we need to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIS. So it's hardly radical to say that our objective should be to destroy ISIS. Where the president fails is the word ultimately. Because ultimately means there's going to be a period of time where ISIS can continue to plan and inspire terrorist acts around the world, and innocent civilians will die. That is unacceptable. There is no justification for a slow pace. And it's the president's failure to pull together the international coalition to do what's necessary to stop ISIS, not just in Iraq and Syria, but where it has spread elsewhere in the world. And it's his fault, really, for 7.5 years in not understanding this is a war against terrorism. We are not in the law enforcement paradigm. We are in the paradigm of war. That's the way the terrorists are acting. We are not responding. And because of that, we will see more dead Americans, sadly.
All right, Ambassador Bolton, it's Kennedy. I guess with all due respect, I do take a little bit of issue with you saying that it's not about mental illness. This is not a lone wolf attack because we simply don't have the facts in. And then, you also rightly state that ISIS is not a nation state. It's also, it's not run in a hierarchy that's easy for us to understand. It is very diffuse. It is very postmodern. So how can killing an enemy that is that diffuse overseas negate the effects of people in this country, born in this country, who do self-radicalize, and where is the cause and effect, where's the correlation between killing people overseas and having a calming effect on those who self-radicalize here?
Well, I don't agree with the characterization of self-radicalization. This is not like spontaneous combustion. One day, the teen was a normal person. The next day, suddenly, he self-radicalized. We know that he's had contact with a radical imam in his mosque. We know in the course of massacring 49 people, he had the cool, calm attitude to call 911 and declare his allegiance to ISIS. ISIS has claimed credit for this. Obviously, we don't know all the facts, but that's the point of the kind of ideology we see at work here. And we have seen historical parallels to this. In Europe, after World War I, communists, radical socialists, anarchists produced a lot of ferment. That's what we're seeing now. We need to take steps against it.
Ambassador, I'm going to step in. FBI Director James Comey is getting ready just at FBI headquarters. Let's watch and listen.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. We're here to discuss the Justice Department's response to the stunning and unconscionable acts in Orlando. Our hearts are broken for the unfathomable loss.
If you think you've seen it all, well, do I have a surprise for you? It's Red Lobster's new lobster and shrimp
that the people of Orlando have suffered, and our thoughts and prayers continue to be with their families and their loved ones. As Attorney General Lynch said yesterday, the full resources of the Department of Justice, which includes the FBI.
Oh, fuck you and FBI. The FBI did that shit.
As well as the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Middle District of Georgia are all supporting the ongoing investigation. Our agents and investigators have been on the ground since the very beginning and have been working around the clock since yesterday, and they'll continue to do so in the days ahead. I want to thank our law enforcement colleagues in Florida for their tireless and extraordinary work so far and their dedication to the ongoing investigation. I've also been in contact with the Attorney General, who is currently on her way back from China and continues to monitor developments in the case. Words really can't express the depth of our sorrow or the measure of our grief for losses that have been suffered by those and lives that have been changed forever. What happened in Orlando yesterday was a horrifying act. a horrifying act of evil and terror. For the LGBT community, Pulse was more than just a place to go and celebrate and see friends. It was a place that promised inclusion and freedom to be themselves, the same promise that our country holds for everyone. This was an attack on that promise. It was an attack on our values as a country and our national community. It was an attack on who we are as a nation and as a people.
Hello, Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How can I help you? Thank you, sir. Your spectacular aircraft is now ready for you at our nearest airfield.
Who will provide some additional details on where we are in the investigation right now.
Thank you, Sally. I want to echo what the Deputy Attorney General said just now. Our hearts are broken and ache for the people who were lost in Orlando, those wounded and their families. We are so sorry for your loss and your suffering. I also want to say a word of thanks and express admiration for the work of local law enforcement in Orlando. They showed professionalism and extraordinary bravery that saved lives. We are very lucky that such good people choose lives of service in law enforcement. And last, I want to say a word of thanks to the people who rendered care that saved lives at the scene. The docs, the EMTs, the nurses, the victim specialists, and the ordinary citizens who stopped to help family and friends. You showed us the best part of humanity in the midst of terrible loss. As you know, this is a federal terrorism investigation led by the FBI with the assistance, as we always do, of our state, local, and federal partners. The reason for that is there are strong indications of radicalization by this killer and of potential inspiration by foreign terrorist organizations. We are spending a tremendous amount of time, as you would imagine, trying to understand every moment of this killer's path to that terrible night in Orlando, to understand his motives and to understand the details of his life. You will notice that I'm not using the killer's name, and I will try not to do that. Part of what motivates sick people to do this kind of thing is some twisted notion of fame or glory, and I don't want to be part of that for the sake of the victims and their families. And so that other twisted minds don't think that this is a path to fame and recognition. So what I want to do is give you a sense of what we know so far, and then tell you as much as I can about our past contact with the killer. We are going through the killer's life, as I said, especially his electronics, to understand as much as we can about his path and whether there was anyone else involved, either in directing him or in assisting him. So far, we see no indication that this was a plot directed from outside the United States, and we see no indication that he was part of any kind of network.
Wow.
It is also not entirely clear at this point just what terrorist group he aspired to support, although he made clear his affinity at the time of the attack for ISIL, and generally leading up to the attack for radical Islamist groups. He made 911 calls from the club during the attack at about 2:30 in the morning, Sunday morning. And there were 3 different calls. He called and he hung up. He called again and spoke briefly with the dispatcher, and then he hung up. And then the dispatcher called him back again, and they spoke briefly. So there were 3 total calls. During the calls, he said he was doing this for the leader of ISIL, who he named and pledged loyalty to, but he also appeared to claim solidarity with the perpetrators of the Boston Marathon bombing and solidarity with a Florida man who died as a suicide bomber in Syria for Al-Nusra Front, a group in conflict with the so-called Islamic State. The bombers at the Boston Marathon and the suicide bomber from Florida were not inspired by ISIL, which adds a little bit to the confusion about his motives. And of course, we're working to understand what role anti-gay bigotry may have played in motivating this attack, an attack that occurred during the very month when we recognize and celebrate our LGBT brothers and sisters. Again, it's early. We're working hard to understand the killer and his motives and his sources of inspiration. But we are highly confident that this killer was radicalized, and at least in some part through the internet. So that's what we've been doing. Now let me tell you what I can about the FBI's prior contact with the killer. We first became aware of him in May of 2013. He was working as a contract security guard at a local courthouse. and he made some statements that were inflammatory and contradictory that concerned his co-workers about terrorism. First, he claimed family connections to Al-Qaeda. He also said that he was a member of Hezbollah, which is a Shia terrorist organization that is a bitter enemy of the so-called Islamic State, ISIL. He said he hoped that law enforcement would raid his apartment and assault his wife and child so that he could martyr himself. When this was reported to us, the FBI's Miami office opened a preliminary investigation. And over the next 10 months, we attempted to determine whether he was possibly a terrorist, something we do in hundreds and hundreds of cases all across the country. Our investigation involved introducing confidential sources to him, recording conversations with him, following him, reviewing transactional records from his communications, and searching all government holdings for any possible connections, any possible derogatory information. We then interviewed him twice. He admitted making the statements that his co-workers reported, but explained that he did it in anger because he thought his co-workers were discriminating against him and teasing him because he was Muslim. After 10 months of investigation, we closed the preliminary investigation. 2 months later, in July of 2014, the killer's name surfaced again in an indirect way. Our Miami office was investigating the Florida man who had blown himself up for the Nusra Front in Syria. Again, the Nusra Front being an Al-Qaeda group in conflict with ISIL. And we learned from the investigation that the killer knew him casually from attending the same mosque in that area of Florida. Our investigation turned up no ties of any consequence between the two of them.
Oh shit. It's fucking commercial.
In the course of that investigation, one witness told us, when asked, do you know anybody else who might be radicalizing, that he had once been concerned about the killer because the killer had mentioned Alaki videos. But the witness had concluded that he later got married and had a child and got a job as a security guard, and so he was no longer concerned about him. Our investigation again turned and interviewed the killer to find out whether he had any significant contacts with the suicide bomber from Nusra, determined that he did not, and then the inquiry continued, focusing on the suicide bomber with no further focus on the Orlando killer. We will continue to look forward in this investigation and backward. We will leave no stone unturned, and we will work all day and all night to understand the path to that terrible night. We're also going to look hard at our own work to see whether there is something we should have done differently. So far, the honest answer is, I don't think so. I don't see anything in reviewing our work that our agents should have done differently, but we'll look at it in an open and honest way and be transparent about it. Our work is very challenging. We are looking for needles in a nationwide haystack.
No, we ain't. No, we ain't. No, we ain't. These people are people that y'all already know who they are. Because y'all the planners
We'll
of
also do our best to be transparent about what we find going forward, consistent with our need to do an investigation in a good way. But we will tell you as much as we possibly can. And let me close by saying something I've said before. We know that this killing is upsetting to all Americans. We hope that our fellow Americans will not let fear become disabling, because that is what these savages want. We hope that instead you will channel this sense of anxiety into something more positive, which is an awareness of your surroundings and the seeking of opportunities to help your fellow Americans, as we saw with the tremendous lines of people giving blood in Orlando. If you channel that anxiety into awareness, you can live your life and allow those of us who are paid to investigate and to stop terrorists to do that work while you live the full life that this great country offers.
Y'all the one of the terrorists.
If you see something, tell us so we can look at it. In every single one of our cases, as we look back, somebody always sees something that they should have told us and they didn't. So our request to you is, please don't let them make you work into a state of anxiety that is disabling. Find ways to channel that into a healthy awareness of your surroundings and live your lives. And we will keep you posted on what we learn from doing our work. Thank you very much.
And there you have the FBI Director James Comey, also joined by U.S. Deputy AG Sally Yates, both giving comments about where they are in the investigation on the Orlando massacre. And what we didn't hear, obviously, are questions from the journalists who were in that room. We were told that they would not be taking questions, so we come back out now to discuss this. Congressman, we learned three things. We learned about the phone calls that happened that night. We learned about the radicalized element and all of this and kind of what they're looking at. And we also learned that, at least for Comey, no more using the name. These guys are seeking glory. We're not going to get it.
Look, I think, first off, on the last point, when you use their name, when you show their picture, and I know it's kind of a right to know on certain things, and people can argue that, but you're encouraging other people that are basically the same thing to say, look, I can become famous somehow. And so I think that's a concern that they have. But on the broader issue, you know, look, is there more the FBI can do? This is something the FBI needs to and can figure out. But look, you know, to an earlier point about, you know, why is taking out people overseas going to stop this at home? When the Chicago Bulls are doing really well, everybody throws on a Bears. People want to be part of a winning team. When ISIS, when Al-Nusra, when all these fronts look like they're being successful, somebody that is prone to jihadism is more likely to take that step. Because again, if they're taught that this is the coming of the new caliphate, if that caliphate is destroyed by the West and by our allies in the region, they will have nothing to sell, because these people that are prone to radicalization will say, well, this was supposed to be the next caliphate, but it was just destroyed by the U.S. Marines and allies.
But Congressman, it's been a couple of years. Is it too late for that?
No, it's not too late, but it's definitely not too late to take this seriously. Oh, it's absolutely late.
But what about this? I mean, what about displacing the Taliban in Afghanistan, a place that you fought? What about the resurgence of the Taliban?
Well,
you know, what about fighting Al-Qaeda to the point where you think they're on the verge of obliteration, and then ISIS pops up?
Well, that is a great point, because we had both Taliban, we had Al-Qaeda, we had AQI on the ropes. When I left Iraq in 2009, we had won. This war was over. The president said it when we fought out the troops in 2011. The problem is, though, we want to do something and then give away and leave, and you can't do that. Just like the Cold War. It took us 50 years to win a war of ideas. This is going to be a battle that I hate to say it takes generations, probably takes some shooting, but ultimately is a war of ideas in which the moderate Muslims need to come under attack.
Shooting is not a replacement for the ideology.
Absolutely.
That's what is lacking. Right. Is that is still going to, you are going to create more vacuums, and that ideology.
It is a short-term fight, which is what you have to do. You have to fight them. The long-term thing is to win the war on ideas.
Okay, let's talk more about that with Ambassador Bolton, because we're fortunate to have a congressman and an ambassador here. And so, Ambassador Bolton, you're still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Terrific. I almost want you gentlemen to kind of talk together, because you're talking about the immediacy of war and then kind of the long reach of trying to turn this ship around in terms of ideology. Ambassador, how do you get there?
Well, I think obviously both internationally and domestically you need a political response and a forceful response. So let me address this question that if you use force, whether it's in Afghanistan or as we did in Iraq or as we're doing now against ISIS, even though the president still says there are no boots on the ground, that we're just creating more of a problem, that you kill people and then more people come in. That's an argument not to do anything. And frankly, I think that when we show we are determined to eradicate this threat to the West, it does have a psychological effect on others. When the United States is perceived as weak, ineffective, unwilling to pay the price, the radicals and the terrorists take heart from that. You know, we are a long way from John Kennedy saying we were willing to pay any price and meet any burden. That was the resolve that it took to win the Cold War. This is the third ideological war that we faced in our lifetime, unfortunately. And if we don't take the right approach to it and recognize it as an ideological struggle, it will get worse.
Hey,
it will not get better.
Ambassador, you were listening to FBI Director James Comey just now confirming that this is a federal terrorism investigation. He said that there is strong indication that radicalization did occur with this killer. What stuck out to you from the very latest that we just heard from the FBI?
Well, I thought that was the most forthright statement we've had from a leader of the administration to date. And it's certainly the case. It's early. There are certainly areas that we don't understand fully, and we'll get more information on it. But let's not shy away from the problem. I think you have to treat the American people like adults. They've just seen 49 of their fellow citizens killed.
They want to know that it's not going to happen to them. They want to know that we're doing what the government's first responsibility is, which is protecting the people against this. So I don't think there's anything wrong in people being angry and outraged by this.
2 miles to Albuquerque.
I could really go for some pork chops right now.
I know. All the cars out here look like juicy.
In fact, I think it's a mark of the failure.
Don't want nobody to get real shit going on.
So utterly dispassionate. It brought to mind Michael Dukakis' famous answer. He is opposed to the death penalty when he was asked, well, how would you feel about the death penalty if your wife were raped and murdered? He gave a very lawyer-like answer. It was quite a good lawyer-like answer. It demonstrated to people that he didn't have normal human emotions.
Just give a quick word, because I know you want.
No, I appreciate that too. The last point on that is just look, when we left Iraq, when we did the surge, it showed a very strong force that we were going to win. We were there and determined to win. When we left, it sent the opposite message.
Right. Ambassador, thank you very much. You'll be with us tomorrow right here on Outnumbered, so we appreciate you today, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
As we get more details about what happened in Orlando, questions popping up about what to do with terrorists' focus on so-called soft targets. Is there any way to protect?
This is the Fox News alert. Disturbing new details about the Orlando nightclub shooter coming to light amid new concerns about the vulnerability of soft targets. In an echo of claims made following the San Bernardino massacre, one of Omar Mateen's former co-workers at a security firm says he complained to their bosses about Mateen's, quote, unhinged and unstable behavior. But he claims the company ignored his complaints because Mateen was Muslim. This is we are learning that the FBI investigated Mateen twice.
Because he was Muslim, and he let him go because he was Muslim.
His suspected ties to known terrorists, but he was let go each time. Let's bring in Mike Baker. He's a former CIA covert operations officer and president of the global intelligence and security firm Diligence. Welcome back to Outnumbered.
Thank you.
So, Mike, let's talk about this a little bit because it's scary for a lot of people who are just now traveling and trying to enjoy the young summer months, going to clubs, going to malls. How can soft targets protect themselves?
Well, it's tough. This is the issue we've been worried about for a very long time. I mean, this is after 9/11. You know, when we were gaming out in terms of counterterrorism and how to prevent future attacks, this sort of focus on soft targets, whether you're talking about a shopping center or a club, sporting events, whatever it might be, has always been, you know, at the top of the concerns because of the difficulties involved. Look, we can lock things down more than we do. But there's always a trade-off. Whether you're talking about, you know, how do we allow the Bureau to do more aggressive investigations, or whether we're talking about protecting a soft target, we have to remember that there's a trade-off between additional security and your civil litigation, your freedom of movement, your privacy. So, you know, there are
Hello, Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How can I help you? Great. The aircraft is waiting for you at our nearest airfield. We trust you'll be happy, sir.
After a horrific attack like this, they are. But in the long run, they're not willing to live in a world like that.
So, Mike, this is Sandra, and what we just heard from FBI Director James Comey is that he doesn't think that the FBI could have done anything differently to have prevented this. And we know that the killer was under investigation by the FBI on 2 separate occasions in 2 separate years, 2013 and 2014. And you just mentioned, could there be the possibility of more aggressive investigating on the behalf of the FBI? Is that what's needed in order to have stopped and prevented this killer from getting through those FBI investigations and onto this?
Well, the short answer is yes. Director Comey, I believe, is correct. I suspect we'll find that the Bureau did within the laws that are established by Congress, you know, because of the will of the people, and because of this, again, this desire to find a balance between privacy, civil liberties, and security. The Bureau acts within those boundaries, and so they have restrictions on when they can open an active case, how long they can carry out an investigation without finding evidence to allow them to go further. You know, so they can do what they can within the parameters that are set. Now, if we want to become more aggressive in trying to prevent future attacks such as this, then we're going to have to expand the playing field, in a sense, for the Bureau and for law enforcement so that they have more running room.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just going to say right here that I'm wondering if it's going to be that much now. I've often argued for the protection of civil liberties, but when I sit back and watch this, I watched Comey speak, and it bothered me. It seemed like they had a lot of information there to then let it go. Do you think there will be backlash against that, and people will be calling for stricter measures in terms of how these investigations are carried out? And maybe some of the people out there who are always calling for civil liberties protection may rethink their stand when something like this happens and suddenly it's in your backyard.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. It's a great point because that's what we typically see. Nothing happens in a bubble. So every time there's an attack, what we do see is we see that pendulum swinging back towards more security. And then when there isn't, again, the past couple of years, look, what's happened? Well, you know, there's been more of a demand for privacy, more of an effort to, take away some of the infrastructure for counterterrorism that we have been putting in place since 9/11 because we're all tired of it. Everybody's tired of the war on terror. We're all just fatigued. And there hadn't been a horrific attack of this nature. And so the natural tendency is for people to say, we don't need it. It's like TSA. Everybody gets fed up with TSA. Why do I take my shoes off? So the pendulum goes back in favor of privacy and security. So undoubtedly, after something like this, yes, there's more calls for, additional security. But people are fickle, and we have short attention spans. It won't be long before people move on to something else.
Actually, in closed Senate hearings, the FBI has just been given more power of surveillance, and some are calling for greater congressional oversight of the FBI. Mike, we always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Very good. More outnumbered in just a moment. Please stay right here. Now the White House daily briefing, press briefing, and as press secretary or deputy press secretary, whomever it will be today, steps to the lectern there. Of course, on Fox News, we'll bring it to you live. We want to thank the congressman for being here today. As we go into Outnumbered Overtime online, Facebook Live, you can watch us, Outnumbered FNC. If you want to watch us on Facebook, we'll be there. We'll be talking gun control. And just how quickly this conversation for the President of the United States yesterday turned to the United States of gun control immediately.
I mean, look, this is terrorism. Terrorism needs to be destroyed. We can have gun debates later, but right now let's focus on destroying ISIS, the people that do this, and that's what the American people want.
It's interesting, because if you look at their footprint, their violent footprint around the world, yes, they have guns, but they have a lot of explosive weapons, too.
That's right. I mean, you look at what happened.
Oh, I didn't know I was under the damn thing, too.
One of his 911 calls, by the way.
Look at what happened in that Oklahoma factory, where they beheaded his coworker and was stopped by the COO, who had a rifle and shot and killed him before he could hurt any more people.
This is an issue of the heart and an issue of people that sign up to a radical jihadist Islamic ideology, and it needs to be stopped. And that's what we need to be focused on. That goal.
Congressman Kinzinger, we're so glad that you were here today. Thank you.
Good to have you. Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Big conversation on Capitol Hill right now.
Morse Mutual, we're here to help.
All right, so online, our live chat is open and ready for you to sign on through your Facebook or Twitter, Outnumbered Overtime, foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click on the Overtime tab. And also on Facebook Live, you can watch us there, Outnumbered FNC. So as we kind of wrap it up today, we're going to be there in both places. You got the live chat rocking too. Ladies, thank you, Jedediah. Really quick last thought.
No, I hope this is well with it. Long-term strategy, something needs to happen here. Times are getting worse, not better.
All right, happening now, right after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Terror in Orlando. That is the subject of this evening's Popular Voicemail. For the next hour, this special edition of The Fact will analyze the worst mass shooting in American history. We'll keep the politics to a minimum. We'll deal with the political on Monday's Factor. When Donald Trump will be here, we've also invited Hillary Clinton. Tonight, we're going to tell you exactly what happened. With a sharp perspective, believe me, this hour will not waste your time. Let's begin with the coach. 29-year-old Omar Mateen, shot dead by Orlando police officers after invading a nightclub shortly after 2 a.m. this morning. Mateen used an assault rifle and a pistol. While he was gunning people down, he called 911, saying he was committing mass murder in allegiance with ISIS. Hussein Mateen, a private security guard, held a number of people hostage, and the entire incident lasted about 3 hours before Mateen was killed. Over that period of time, the casualty count was horrific. 50 people dead, 53 people wounded. Again, this is the worst mass shooting in American history.
Oh my God, people are getting shot, dude. Oh my God, dude. It is with great sadness that I share we have not 20 but 50 casualties. In addition to the shooter, there are another 53 that are hospitalized.
All over, the vast majority of the gunshot wounds were to the chest, the abdomen, and the extremities.
This guy was pacing looking for a family member back and forth, and he had a balloon sticking out. The balloon reaching out was this big, half big, like half sticking out.
After the second shot, there was a pause, and then it just started shooting. And
some white people are being raised up, like that little boy that walked away from his daddy in Rosewood.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's wrong, Pops.
Yep.
I can't stand you. Hate you.
I hate you. How you say you hate your dad, dude? Unless you see something that's demoralizing to you as a human being here. That boy said he got business in there.
Daddy Hank is one man. He came from Daddy and they did a lot of bad things.
Yeah, did a lot of bad things. He's seen it.
And he's all there do a lot of bad things to black people. He did. He saw his daddy commit all his black people. And that little boy was playing with black kids. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was okay with him.
We was playing with him. That's the only thing you can forget. Mass kid was gonna play with the, and roll everybody on the street, but blacks and white kids play together. When you got kids playing together, nothing but come forward with truth. Like nothing but kids. They don't start seeing no difference till they get older.
You heard it. He laying up there and your boy saying he ain't saying that they terrorists. He's saying that they can't see that he was with no group. Obama said that they don't see that he was with no group. He just claimed that before dying. Yeah.
Daddy was associated with Islam. His dad. Like you remember Daddy? A certain way, and then all of a sudden you take on that persona of what the radical part.
But the dad just said that he didn't know his son was gonna do that. As usual. I'm just fucking with you.
They probably prayed together and talked about.
You know they did. 30 virgins.
You know, strike a blow in the heart of the infidel. That's what he did. He struck a blow. And America's outraged. His daddy knew what's up with that crazy motherfucker. He knew that motherfucker. FBI checked you out 2 or 3 times. Your daddy ain't stupid. And the reason he got checked out was because of his dad.
No, he got checked out because he had met up with,
well, I mean, his dad's association. Once FBI got him, man, FBI go all in your back. Everybody, FBI know about everybody around you. Everybody. Federal Bureau investigation. Motherfuckers, these motherfuckers know how to investigate your shit. Hoover set the bullshit up.
That dude said that he met with that dude that blew himself up one time. And they was on his ass when he met with that dude that blew himself up too.
This containment garbage is getting people killed.
That boy was killed to be killed after it was all on. He blew out in a blaze. Fired officer, he fired, we fired. I ain't surprised.
In Florida, where Geraldo Rivera is standing by. So you've been down there for a few hours. What has struck you emotionally?
What struck me the most profoundly, Bill, is the fact that this is the existential threat to the United States. Omar Mateen, 29 years old, born in New York City. His father, a well-known Afghan politician who claims to be president of the country, also lives here in Florida.
Now, talk to me.
The fact that this man, this monster, could take it upon himself to begin this slaughter, just picking the softest target he could find. Pulse Orlando, that nightclub, just about a half a mile from where I'm standing now. I'm standing in front of the regional hospital, the trauma center where they brought the victims, was jammed this morning at 2 o'clock, shortly after 2 o'clock, when Omar Mateen walked in and began firing. shortly after he began firing, some uniformed Orlando cops happened on the area. What ensued was a gunfight, as you described. So picture the packed nightclub where many of the grieving victims, people who came up to me just sobbing and crying and, oh my God, it's my brother, it's my son, it's my nephew. Those people complained that the nightclub, the Pulse, had only one exit, that there were padlocks on the back exits. So Omar Mateen walks in, picture it, with his AR-15 and his handgun, and he starts firing, and people had to run past him in their attempt to get out. They were trapped. That's why he could make that taunting 911 call 20 minutes after he began the mayhem, after he began this horrible carnage.
It's already showing you how to say
You see a place like that, if you're in
It
this
is, as the president that you have pointed out, Bill, the worst mass shooting in the history of the country, the worst act of terrorism since 9/11. But there he was, uniformed Orlando cops converging on the area. They surround the Pulse Orlando. Mateen is inside. He shoots. He reloads. He shoots. He reloads. He shoots. He reloads. This many casualties, he had to have reloaded many times.
Who next on the
And
list?
in his 911 claiming
like,
ISIS inspired him, in his 911 call taunting the United States, talking our very existence.
This summer's gonna be hot, dog.
Come on, Dave. You already said he's gonna be hot. Dog.
Created a
It's gonna be hot.
All that crazy
What, Dave? They made a Whopper into a hot dog, Dave.
Horrifying, and the questions.
Anything in the Whopper,
They made a Whopper into a hot dog, bro.
Interviewed
So,
2 times by
right there, let you know the heat is on, baby.
How this guy could be in that place, armed as he was, is a question that, well, tomorrow night,
in a hot dog.
will try to
Get into about
Are you kidding me?
Now, I mean, the FBI interviews a lot of people. There have been more than 100 people in the United States who have been arrested for associations with ISIS. This terror attack, very similar to the Paris killing, 130 died in Paris, as you remember, on November 13, 2015. Very similar, except it was one guy, not a bunch of guys. But it's the same MO, and I gotta say, and I hate to say it, you can't stop this kind of stuff, Geraldo. You can't stop it, all right? Individuals who are gonna go out and commit mass murder, no matter how they're gonna do it, with a bomb, with a gun, you know, whatever they're gonna do, you can't stop them. But what you can do is have a coherent anti-jihadist strategy, which we don't have, and we're going to get into that tomorrow and a little bit tonight as well. We don't have one. But for now, I feel terrible because a lot of the people in Orlando that you're talking about, they don't even know what happened yet because the authorities are still, their bodies still in that nightclub. They have not been taken out. The investigation's still going on.
About a half hour ago, inside the Marriott Hotel, it's a Marriott, isn't it? Right next door. Ramada Hotel next door, the victims' families were gathered. They read off a list of the survivors, and suggested that if your relative was not on the list of the survivors, then your relative was dead. We can talk about the method that was used to bring that news to the surviving families. It was horrible to watch them as they emerged from the Ramada, staggering, tears flowing, and all the rest of it. You referenced Paris. You'll recall that my daughter Simone was inside the stadium in Paris when 3 suicide bombers exploded themselves outside. I know very well what it feels like to be in their shoes, how helpless it is. It seems to me that once you get in that jihadi watch list, then just like someone who beats his wife, someone who for whatever reason gets on a no-fly list, then that person is treated differently than the other citizens. I respectfully submit that. Now let me talk about ISIS very briefly. As long as that rotten cesspool is allowed to exist in Syria and Iraq, it will continue to inspire these deranged people, and they will continue to let loose their fanatics to perpetrate this kind of bloodshed on absolutely helpless, trapped, innocent American civilians.
Now, I want you to do me one favor. I want you to tonight, and we'll have you back on tomorrow night on The Factor.
I want you to talk to a couple of people who survived this, if you can find them. All right? An extensive conversation. All right? And what they were feeling, what they were going through, just like your daughter. Okay? I want you to try to find a couple of people, talk to them, and then we'll bring their stories tomorrow night, okay?
You got it. We're efforting that right now. Craig is at one of the houses right now.
We appreciate it. And one footnote, Legends of Law is supposed to be on in this hour on the Fox News channel. Obviously, breaking news takes precedent. The Boston Tea Party episode will be shown next Sunday at 8 p.m. Next on the rundown, 2 harrowing personal stories at the massacre site. Then Bernie Goldberg and Ralph Peters both angry tonight. Up ahead.
These networks gearing up for Cosby shit to be the trial of the century. Money is going to be made. OJ's trial saved CNN.
Yep.
Saved it. CNN was getting terrible ratings, going under. And they got OJ, man, every motherfucking day. They said they were talking about 400, 500 million and shit was made.
And like you said, that young dude trying to make a name for himself. Yeah, the judge.
Of course, you can imagine it's going to take some time to figure out who the people are in the club. But I had a mom here at the hospital early this morning. She says her son Christopher went to the club with his boyfriend Juan. Unfortunately, Juan was actually confirmed dead, but Christopher Lineman, well, he's still unaccounted for. So Christine said she keeps asking for answers, but she's not getting them. She was just crying, sobbing when I was talking to her. She said, I never asked to be part of the Sandy Hook Club. I never wanted assault rifles around here. Why would this happen to my son? My son is a good person. So my heart just went out to her. And she also shared pictures with us. And she's asked me, anyone, if you've seen her son, Christopher Lineman, will you please call us? And she definitely wants to know where he is.
Okay, good. You have to assume. Now, is this woman as well? Is she over in Ramada Inn? Is she over there with the authorities? I guess that's the gathering.
Correct. And earlier she was at the hospital, then she went home after Starlight, but she's still trying to find those answers. Obviously, we know that patients here have been identified, so hopefully it's soon to roll out.
Well, everybody's praying for a miracle here, but if the boy had a cell phone, didn't use it, and his partner is dead, it's doesn't get tougher than that. When you are talking about...
Something else that I'd like to mention about those cell phones. I'm hearing that investigators, they're inside that building, and it's very eerie because they hear lots of cell phones going off among the bodies in that building. Cell phones probably calls from loved ones trying to get a hold of the
Absolutely. And Ms. Martin, I understand you witnessed that, right? That you were inside and you saw some of these phones on bodies ringing. Tell us about that.
I'm sorry, Bill, it's a little difficult to hear you, but yeah, just as Valerie mentioned, that's what I'm hearing. I mean, it's really chilly when you hear the first responders going there to assess the situation, assess the bodies and the victims, and they hear the chilling sound of the cell phones ringing, know that those are family members and friends that are frantically trying to reach them.
Are the bodies most of the bodies still in the club at this hour?
Yeah, from what we understand, there are still some there. They are trying to identify all of them. They have released the names, the list of the victims, and of course, you can only imagine how those families must feel. I mean, I remember back in 2001 when 9/11 happened. I remember what I was doing, what I was feeling. I remember wondering if my aunt made it to work okay. Was she one of the victims? And I was just frantically searching to see if her name was anywhere.
Now, I want to be clear about this. Have the authorities released all the names of the 50 dead? Have they all been released, or some held back, Bella?
I'm sorry.
They have not been all been released. In fact, 7 have been released right now, so we're still waiting for the others. And again, it's going to take some time, most likely, to identify all the people who are in that club.
So we have 7 dead identified, 43 not identified. What is the process, Valerie? I know that Estes having a hard time hearing me, so I'm going to stay with you. What is the process of that? We have all of the families in the Ramada Inn and the authorities walking over. Tell us about the process.
Well, I know some of the families are at the Ramada, but we also have many families still here at the hospital, coming in and out. I think people are just desperate for information, so they're going back and forth. It's also not just relatives, but also friends here, just asking around, have you heard anything?
to know who is wounded, who survived, and who did not survive. Is there a website? Does the Orlando Police put up something like that? How is the information getting to you on the street?
Yes, well, the city of Orlando has been very organized. They have, they're saying that the family members should go to the Ramada and that they're telling them, they're giving them the information. However, I think it's still difficult to find out who those people are in the club, and that's what the frustration is. They're just going to have to wait and see who's in that club before they can put out those answers. But they are doing their best to get that information out to them.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you. Directly ahead, the big picture, the global jihad. What should the USA do about it? Then, is television news exploiting this terrible incident in Florida? Doctor's coming right back. The next segment tonight with the Orlando killer pledging allegiance to ISIS and even mentioning the head savage of that organization's name. There's no question Islamic terrorism again in the forefront. Joining us from Washington, Jim Hansen, Executive Vice President for the Center for Security Policy, and from Los Angeles, Aaron Cohen, a counterterrorism expert. So, Mr. Cohen, counterterrorism doesn't seem to be working right now for the USA, or am I wrong?
No, Bill, you're absolutely right. In fact, what happened is not only what's going on with the system, it's not only incomprehensible, but it's irreprehensible. We're here 15 years later after 9/11. We have no macro strategy. The key ingredient, I'll tell you right now, that's missing is aggression. Aggression is a proven tactic. And unless you take the aggression, infuse it into the law enforcement system, the only people who had any fight today in that game was that SWAT team in Orlando. Hats off to those guys who dumped magazine after magazine, gunning it out with another would-be Islamic jihadist who brought weapons into that location and opened fire. And the only people who were allowed to essentially unleash that aggression was that SWAT team. The entire macro picture is broken, and the entire system needs to be rebuilt with aggression stemming from the top and then brought down.
I said to Geraldo earlier, Mr. Hansen, that you're never going to stop this kind of stuff because, like, for example, Israel, very aggressive anti-terrorism, counterterrorism, very aggressive. And every 3 or 4 weeks, we're reporting somebody gets in, stabs or shoots, blows people up inside Israel. It's like a way of life over there for them. Now here, we have more distance, but now we're starting to see these ISIS-influenced individuals like this Mateen come in and then, picks out a nightclub, goes in, knows it's a soft target, bing, 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 bing. I don't know what the USA can do about that.
Well, Bill, we can't, and we're not going to stop everyone. But as Aaron mentioned, the lack of aggression and the lack of purpose in the way our security professionals have been hamstrung by the administration is the problem. President Obama failed to mention Islam. The security professionals now are forbidden from being trained on Islamist ideologies or Sharia law, as Aaron mentioned. Those things factor into this. The punishment under Sharia for homosexuality is death. If the people who were interviewing Mr. Mateen earlier when the FBI had him in 2013 and 2014 had been able to follow those paths and connect those dots, there is a possibility we could have stopped this and lives could have been saved.
It's look, in the United States, Mr. Cohen, you can't just detain somebody. All right, so Mateen was anti-Semitic. That's what his father says. All right, he's anti-Semitic. As I pointed out, every single jihadist on the planet's anti-Semitic, as Mr. Hansen just said. So the FBI knows he's sympathetic, Mateen knows he's sympathetic to people overseas, suicide bombers. That's why they questioned him in the first place. But you can't detain him. And the agents don't have enough time to watch all of these cranks. There's thousands of them, right?
I agree, Bill, but to add to Jim's point, it's time for the cuffs to come off law enforcement. And what I mean by that is, look, the FBI investigated this guy twice. The fact is he held a security license, which enabled him to provide protective services on behalf of a licensed security company. He had a concealed weapons permit. Guns have nothing to do with this, but the fact that he didn't have those permits taken away from him at any point during that investigation or after the investigation.
In the state of Florida, I don't know if you could, unless he's convicted of a crime. You see, just because
but
you're under suspicion, our system is you're innocent until proven guilty. So you can't take anything away. You can't, if the state law says that you can carry, because you're working in a security business that needs that kind of protection, and you're clean. He had no arrest record. This guy was clean.
That's right.
What I'm trying to get at,
And after the fact,
the overall arch of this, Mr. Hansen, is, and you're both right, the United States government isn't aggressive enough toward the root problem, ISIS. You got a president who still today wouldn't utter the words Islamic terrorism. Hillary Clinton won't utter them. Bernie Sanders won't utter them. Okay? So this is PC madness. But if you're going to really take it seriously, then you got to think about, you have to go in and you have to defeat them, which means you have to kill them. The Kurds aren't going to do it. The Saudis aren't going to do it. And this is what we hear over and over. Or our allies, they're going to go in and they're going to do it. No, they're not. It's going to have to be us. And I don't know if, even after tonight, Mr. Hansen, I don't know if the people have the will to do what has to be done.
Well, let's hope they gain the will, Bill. But I'll disagree with you. ISIS isn't the root problem. The global jihad and the Sharia ideology
is the demonstrative arm of that jihad.
Correct. No,
not
absolutely.
the Taliban. They're isolated in Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's ISIS that this guy was mentioning in his 911 call. This is the glamour. This is the heat. ISIS.
It's true. Bill, you're right. They are the big dog right now, and they're the one he wanted to get his name up in lights. Right. So he pledged allegiance to ISIS, and we should. It's a shame that the global caliphate has a headquarters in a country that we spent blood and treasure to liberate. So we absolutely should go and mop them up. We should wipe them out and cut it down.
That NATO needs to get declare war. Congress needs to declare war on the Islamic Jihad and then get NATO involved. But you know what this is like, Mr. Cohen, and you know this probably better than anyone. This is like the late 1930s, when the philosophy in Europe was, we can contain the Third Reich. We can contain them. All right? We'll give them this, we'll give them that, but we're really not going to go in for the knockout punch because we'll keep them right where they are in Czechoslovakia, and a little bit of Austria will give them that, and then he'll stop. This is the same exact stuff. If you don't destroy this ISIS, and I mean destroy them so you see bodies in the sand, this kind of stuff is just going to get more and more and more. Last word, Mr. Cohen.
I couldn't agree more. It's behavioral based, Bill. Counterterrorism is behavioral based. What I mean by that is when you have a fight, whoever's defending is now trying not to get killed. We need to flip the switch, and that means that we have to start looking at the potential terror threat as a full-blown threat and then start investigating backwards, which means flipping the entire law enforcement perspective around. No, we can't detain. No, we can't take away the guns. But what we can do is we can look at the cell phone, stop whittle-adding with the warrants from the judges in order to be able to track those. Let's look at the text messages. I want to see the activity of this guy from the moment the FBI left him alone until what happened today. Why was this guy even allowed to go in and buy weapons? Why wasn't that red flag?
All of that
it's a question of
be accomplished if Congress would declare war on the Islamic Jihad. Then you take it out of law enforcement and you put it into military, and the rules change. And I have been saying that for years. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Plenty more as the factor moves along this evening. Bernie Goldberg has been monitoring the TV coverage of the Orlando massacre, and he's a bit agitated. Unresolved problem segment tonight. It's fairly clear the Obama administration has not punished ISIS and the Islamic Jihad in general to the extent that they are significantly damaged. They're still on offense. People are still dying all over the place. Here's from Washington, Fox News strategic analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. So, you agree with me that Congress should declare war, which broadens out what we can do. You take it away from law enforcement, which is doing a good job. I'm not critical of American law enforcement, but right now this is a war. I mean, this is an act of war that happened in Orlando. They say it's terrorism this and hate that. Yeah, there's elements of that, but it's really an act of war, is it not?
Well, it certainly is. It may be a new kind of war, but it's an act of war. And we definitely need a declaration of war. We need a commander-in-chief. I don't care which party, I don't care male or female, but somebody who will have our military's back, who will order our military to track down extremist jihadis wherever they are and kill them and fire any senior officer who hesitates to pull the trigger. But Bill, it's not just military. That's the premier thrust. But here at home, I would do several things. Ask Congress to crack down on hate mosques, prohibit funding for any American religious institutions, prohibit funding from countries like Saudi Arabia or the Gulf states that do not practice religious freedom themselves. Use the model of the campaign against child pornography to outlaw logging onto jihadi sites or posting on them.
That's
Put these guys in jail.
Right. If you, and what I want just to amplify what the Colonel is saying because it's innovative and interesting. If you possess child pornography, that is, if you use your computer, okay, and you have a picture of it on your computer, they can charge you with a felony and go to jail for some time. So what the Colonel has just proposed is if you have a jihadi website and you're accessing it and the authorities then find that out, that's a crime in itself. However, what you're going to run up against then is research, journalists doing it, that kind of thing. So it's not the same as child pornography because there are other elements.
No, you're right. It's not the same as child porn because it's immediately deadly, but they're both horrible. And we could license journalists, legitimate journalists, to log onto those sites. But it's not a free speech issue. It's a national defense issue.
No, I understand that.
And beyond that, there are other things we can do. We need to update the Alien and Seditions Act to make force by law high-tech companies to support law enforcement. We need to empower law enforcement. We need to empower the intelligence agencies and stop vilifying them. And by the way, if I were Commander-in-Chief, I'll tell you there's two practical things I'd do. One, I would make it public policy of the United States, stated policy, that every time there's a jihadi attack on our soil, small or large, another $1 billion in defense aid goes to Israel. And two, I'd take a page from President Obama. Bill, I would close Guantanamo. And I would reopen it in the remote Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska. Hey, the terrorists don't like the tropical paradise. Try an Alaskan dinner, and by the way, they don't get to pick the menu.
But look, President Obama has killed more terrorists than any other president with the drones and that kind of a campaign, very targeted campaign. So you can't say that the guy is not aware of the problem. The big mistake, in my opinion, and we're going to deal with this tomorrow in more detail, is that he hasn't sold the urgency of the fight against these people, not only to the world, but to the United States. I mean, if you were to take a poll tomorrow, do you want U.S. troops to go into Iraq and Syria and wipe these SOBs off the face of the earth? It would be 50-50, all right? The president has not sold it as a national security issue. He hasn't sold it, all right? Because whether he doesn't believe it, I don't know what he believes. But he doesn't say the words. He's always deflecting into the gun control debate. He's never saying, you know, enough's enough. We're going to kill every one of them we can find. I'd like to hear that. I'd like to hear that stated. You'll never hear it.
Shut your violent ass up. You ain't going to go nowhere and kill nobody. You can put the list in and tell somebody to kill somebody, but you have to put a fucking trigger to wood.
But when we were in Iraq, we killed a lot more terrorists.
Yeah, but that was a military thing against Hussein, then it was defined terrorists.
Bill, I am for anything that kills terrorists, but drones are not enough. This has to be just a war to utterly destroy them. It's going to be because Obama has allowed this cancer, and that's the metaphor, to metastasize so broadly. It's going to be a decades-long fight, even if we fight it seriously. And right now, with those drone strikes, he's operating on the original tumor, but it's metastasized throughout the global system. And so we must take it seriously. And
we must just get rid of Obama.
It's not all
and all the rest
Muslims
of
are terrorists. But virtually all terrorists are Muslims.
Yeah, and that's why we have to declare war on the Islamic Jihad. But even if we do that, you know, this guy in Orlando, this Afghan American, because he was an American citizen, all right, this guy didn't break any laws until early this morning. I mean, he was a suspect guy. They were interviewing him, but he didn't step out. You see,
Bill, if it were illegal to access or contribute to jihadi websites. They could have held them on that. But that's what I said. It's not just military is going to carry the bulk of this burden, but on a daily basis, law enforcement shoulders it. And we've got to stop blaming cops when things go wrong and start supporting the police. Dead cops matter. And we've also got to stop this Hollywood left-wing campaign against the intelligence agencies. The intelligence agencies are the first line of defense. They are patriots. They're not trying to subvert America. And by the way, I wonder today how Tim Cook at Apple feels after last night's tragedy. Does he still think Apple shouldn't help us crack the jihadi cell phones?
You know, the civil liberties always runs up against the security of Americans. It's always been that way, but that's why I want the declaration of war.
Right, it makes it is war. You know, declaration of war, and civil liberties matter. Of course they do. But in wartime, you got to take some hits.
In wartime, you've got to look. You know, you'd say to the guy from Apple, "Hey, it's war now, pal. It's a whole different ballgame, and you're either going to cooperate in the war effort, or we're gonna move against you." You know?
That is why we need to upgrade.
It's a word, Colonel, you know very well throughout history: sedition.
Exactly. Okay? That's why we need to update for the 20th century the Alien and Sedition Act. High tech needs to help defend America.
All right, Colonel. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We come right back. Bernie Goldberg on TV coverage of the Orlando Massacre. Bernie is next.
Hate crime, terrorism, there's a number of directions this is going to go, and we know political reaction will be based on what the FBI tells us. Should it matter? In a terrorizing situation, no matter what, it shouldn't matter whether, I mean, if it turns out to be politicians will jump all over and say, we better do something about them.
It's time for people to come together and say, enough.
Mr. Goldberg joins us now from Miami. So what's your beef?
Well, I found that was a fascinating exchange, because what it shows us is how they turn what should have been a discussion about Islamic terrorism into their favorite discussion, gun control. After Chuck Todd asked Tom Brokaw, should it matter what kind of terrorism it was, what Chuck was actually saying is, so many people have been, does it really matter if it's this kind of terrorism? Sort of reminiscing of Hillary Clinton, you know, saying, you know, at that hearing, what difference does it make? So then Tom Brokaw says, no, it shouldn't matter, which I found fascinating, but then goes on to say, the real problem is guns. And then he says, you got a problem, you get a gun. That's what goes on now, and it's got to come to an end, okay? So instead of a fresh, original, edgy discussion about why so many Muslims, a small percentage, but a lot of Muslims, become psychopathic killers, we get the same old discussion about how
and it goes worse than that. It goes worse than that. I mean, if Tom Brokaw or anybody else believes the federal government, by passing any kind of draconian anti-gun laws, can stop, you know, with hundreds of millions of guns already on the streets, and the Mexican cartels being able to smuggle anything they want across an unsecured border. I mean, the gun... I mean, so these people are living in a theoretical world where no problem is ever solved. No is. Let me make very clear for me that I am not making
Oh, that was
Continuing now, Bernie Goldberg from Miami. You know, the left-wing press has enabled President Obama to take a much more passive approach to fighting ISIS than perhaps he would have been able to take.
Hello, Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How can I help you? Great. The aircraft is waiting for you at our nearest airfield. We trust you'll be happy, sir.
To the extent that you're right, it's certainly true the other way around. I think Barack Obama sets the tone for a lot of the press. Listen to the exchange that you played earlier with Tom Brokaw. Brokaw was much more comfortable talking about gun control than Islamic terrorism. That's what Barack Obama did today during his
Yeah, because the motherfuckers that's terroring is the reason why they want the gun. They the ones started the shit, did the shit.
Yeah, but let me submit to you this. The genesis of ISIS is the pullout of U.S. troops from Iraq, which all the liberal press favored. They applauded Obama when he pulled every single American troop out of there. Now, history shows that that was an enormous mistake for the world and for the United States. Good luck to you. The liberal press is never going to say, gee, we made a mistake. We should have kept the troops there, and Obama made a mistake by doing that. They're never going to do that. It's just not in their DNA.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go a little further on that. I think the liberal press blames George Bush for getting us in there in the first place, and the conservative press blames Barack Obama for pulling out. And I think they're both right. Obama was wrong, and Bush was wrong. But on this matter of who's influencing who, Mark Halperin, a political reporter, during the campaign of 2012 for the presidency said, political reporters tend to cover stories the way the Obama campaign wants them to cover stories. There are no memos, there are no directives, of course, telling them how to cover stories. They just do because they share the same values. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing that we're seeing now with gun control versus Islamic terrorism. They're covering it the way the president talks about it.
Okay, but it's more than that, though. It's a deeply ingrained belief on the part of the big liberal media, NBC, Tom Brokaw, New York Times, Washington Post, not to that extent, but on the editorial page, certainly, that the United States is always the bad guy. And somehow, you know, we can't take up the mantle and crush the evildoers, because there really no such thing as evil. 10 seconds.
Hey.
No, I think you're right. There is a tendency on the left more than the right to use the old expression to blame America first, to see more fault than they should. And in the case of what we're seeing today, let's talk about gun control and let's not talk so much about
because America's bad because we have all these guns. So we're bad because we have all these guns. Yeah. But the ISIS people, you know, they're bad, but they're not bad enough, right? So that we can go in and wipe them out. And that's what we got. All right, Bernie, thanks very much as always. And that is it for this special analysis of the Orlando, Florida massacre, the worst mass shooting in American history. And tomorrow, I'm going to deal with the politics of...
Yo, hello.
Hi, Mr. Nelson. This is Dr. Lack. I got a note that you were concerned about a medicine that your GI doctor gave you. Were you able to get in contact with them?
Ma'am, they called me up after I had called you guys up, crying and hysterical and everything about their medication. But I never got no call back from you or no one after telling them that I wanted to speak to you or your nurse or somebody to tell me how did this happen to me.
Okay, so what's the medicine and what did the GI doctor tell you to do?
GI doctor told me if I felt from the first part of not taking medicine, I shouldn't have took it, even though you said that you said what you said. But
Sorry, which medicine are we talking about?
We talking about this here, and I only took one of those pills. I mean, a half of it. I'm about to tell you. We talking about this MOVANT. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so at your last appointment, I think we decided that you were not going to take that medicine.
you know, I say that I before I took them, you told me no, take that medication, and I said no, I wasn't. You said this medication would do you some, and I was feeling horrible, and I said I need to listen to what my doctor said, so I'm gonna take this medication, and that's what I did. When what happened when I took it, my provider, I'll tell you, I went into convulsions, and then I started sweating real bad. But I would not go to no hospital, and I would not call 911 because, like I said again, I felt that I was too small for that medication. That's why I took half of it because I don't eat meat. So therefore, I knew this medication was going to act different with my system because I'm not an overweight person, first of all, and that medicine is made for a person that's using this digestive system overworking the digestive system because of how big they are and how much they consume and what they eat. That it was.
It's not exactly. It's not made for overweight or obese people.
I don't know.
Any medicine can do anything to any body. So if you took that medicine and it made you feel that bad, then your GI doctor is right. You should not take it. It just, like we talked about, drink plenty of water. At least 3 to 4 bottles a day, and that should help with the constipation as well.
Cause like I said, I'm still having all the fevers and everything, and I'm still having the discharge. So it's almost like the antibiotics ain't working, that medication ain't working. It gets to be frustrating when no one knows nothing. Yes, I do.
You do? Okay. And do you have a ride to get over here, or do you need help with that?
No, I'll get somebody to bring me over.
I'm sorry?
I said, yes, I have someone to bring me over.
You've got someone to bring you over here? Okay, perfect. Because we do need to recheck your urine, because this is at the end of your antibiotic treatment.
Yes.
So we need to check the urine and see what it looks like now after the 6 weeks of antibiotics.
Okay.
Okay, and so your appointment with me is at 2:30, but you have one with Dr. Malville at 1:40.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can get here by 1 o'clock, that will be best.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Boy. Yo, they push off they faults quick, boy. I'm tired of this game. Yep, I'm going to see her tomorrow. I'm going to reschedule that for Wednesday. Yep, I can reschedule that for Wednesday. Oh, this look like some real shit and a trailer park too. Some real shit. This look like a shitty ass trailer park. For real. Surprised no dog don't attack me. I leave fingerprints on the nut.
Bye for now. A tricky one to explain to the cops. I'll be seeing you.
Hello, this is Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How can I help? Your beautiful new aircraft is waiting at our nearest airfield. We hope you're very happy, sir.
take it this isn't a social call. So you don't want to get in serious trouble, huh? Okay, leave it with me.
Hello, you're through to Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How can I help? Thank you, sir. Your spectacular aircraft is now ready for you at our nearest airfield.
tell you that throwed you. Whoever the skeleton man is professional throws off. Oh, you throw it off too. 44. Maybe have some sick individuals on this game. All y'all gotta do is be cheating and I'm gonna quit. I'm just being honest. Let's see if you know how to do this. want to know how you lived there and made it that first time. That's bullshit where you can fall over that damn thing. Tank ain't gonna do. Oh, that ain't no money, man. I can't play that no more. That's a waste of time. Just a waste of time, man. I ain't got no time to waste. I can be going to play basketball. It's Mr. Glasses signing off.